All right, lovelies. Another conversation about content. And today I'm going to be talking to Laura Perkins, one of my favorite people in the world, who describes herself as a spiritual life coach with a focus on mindful living. I don't think that in any way fully describes the extent of her magic. But I'm talking to you today, Laura, because I admire from afar your content practice and I want to dig into it a little bit. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline. Well, I can owe that entire content strategy and all the, I don't know even how many newsletters I have now or things that to repurpose, up to 100 maybe.
Wow.
And I really owe it all to you
Oh, bless
because
you.
when I found you, um, I was floundering with this idea of having a business and being an entrepreneur. And your idea around content, I think we had on one of the first calls. I loved to say I'm not a writer, and I remember saying that on the call, and then I just every time I say that now I can imagine my closet full of hundreds of journals that I've kept since I was 14. I'm like,
Wow.
how can you say you're not a writer when you process through writing?
Yeah.
um, so I translated that kind of writing into business.
Wow, I love it. So w- I'd love to like dig in a little bit to like where you were in terms of because I know people watching may be in that state of either resistance or fear or so you were clearly saying you are not a writer, which makes me smile.
I'm not a
I
writer. Very, very, very afraid,
in
very scared
what was the
to
what
put
was
my point of view out there, even though my list was so small. And thank God my list was small because then I could do it.
yeah,
I think I took a few people off the list.
be able
So
to do it.
because those are those people that you think are your critic, they're really
Yeah.
not. So you just use them. But I just did that for my own comfort level. And if they asked to come back on, I told them.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and and so I started. I just started. I wrote one. I said, I don't have to publish it. It's the same way I started dating my now husband. You don't have to marry him. Just
Yeah.
go to coffee. And just that first one step. And
Yes.
I wrote that first one. It took a week. I sent it to mentors and friends to read, to give me feedback. And I couldn't imagine being where you were, where you said, well, on a Monday morning, I just sit down and I'm like, yeah, no, that's never going to happen. And now that has happened. Now
Yeah.
my newsletter goes out in about, 3 hours. I put one together.
Oh, wonderful.
I call them musings. So they're just basically me thinking about a particular topic or a thought-provoking idea. And um, and way back then was 2020, the end of 2020 when I met you. So the
Wow.
pandemic, we were going into
Been a while.
2021, and not the end of the pandemic, but the end of the first year of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, and it gave me so many things. So starting to realize I am a writer and enjoying. So it gave me engagement, not
Yeah.
only with my business, but with those people out there that were reading. I was starting to get feedback, just little notes. Oh, I love this, Laura, or which really helped a lot. It gave
Let's
me,
touch on, yeah, I love it. I love that so much. I love that the things you did in the beginning to make yourself feel comfortable enough to do it, like taking people off the list and telling them that. So I think that's brave in itself. And also, sharing your content with people. I remember years ago when I became a blogger, which I never would have thought I would have called myself a blogger, but I was, years before I actually became a coach that sold. I blogged about my personal
yeah,
growth journey. Um, and yeah, I remember I used to get a friend of mine to read. I couldn't publish till someone had read it,
yeah,
before. So I love that because I think those are very real fears. And sometimes they're not acknowledged, and so they just paralyze us, but something you just said, you touched on enjoyment, and I think the biggest shift that I see in the people who kind of make this transition with content is they go from seeing it as either like marketing and it's icky and people are going to think I'm selling to them, or I don't know what to say, or it's all been said before, and all the other stuff, to actually it being a part of their creative expression, something that they enjoy to do. And it's something that I love to help people see their content as is an extension of their gift. I mean, and I read your newsletters. They are absolutely an extension of your gift. I mean, Musings, I think, undersells them, because what I love about your writing and what I aim for in my own is that I feel like I'm in, I could be in the room with you, and you hold space for people. There's something about presence in your work that's really important, holding that space. And so to have that, feeling of like calm and peaceful and mindful come through your writing, I think is really lovely. And so, but I'd love to hear from you, like when did you start enjoying it, basically? And why do you think you started enjoying it?
Well, just like teaching yoga, which I've done, I'm a yoga teacher, thousands of hours trained. And I remember asking one of my teachers, like, when will I not dread teaching a class? And it finally just happened 10 years later. So for the writing, when did I start enjoying it? I can still put myself in a place where I'm not enjoying it when I start putting the wrong pressure on it. Like, I have to do this to make money, to have a business. And that's not really what I'm doing. What I've learned it really is it's my point of view. So I get to engage with myself, my business. I get to learn about my business through what I want to write. And learning what my business is, and then performing in my business, learning what it is, performing in it. It's like constant feedback, that weekly writing. And so I would say I started enjoying it right away in certain parts of the week, and then dreading it on the day I was going to do it. But once it was done, I still love that feeling once it's what is done, because I love putting it out there. And I want to. So if I can get out of my own way, it gives me that point of view, that engagement. It also, at the beginning, being an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, as they say, can be kind of lonely. And it gave me structure. And like I was writing to someone. And I think about, grandmothers used to sit around the table and talk, and the little ones were just there playing and listening, and kind of that in the background, and sitting down and writing your grandma a letter, which I actually did. That's how old I am. It's like that each week. I'm writing to those that want to be on my list.
I love that. And tell me about, because we all have a different practice. I try and, for example, I try and think about what I'm going to write about on Monday before the weekend. Otherwise, if I sit down on Monday with a blank page, it's, and then I like to percolate over the weekend, so that then I'll make some notes, and then and then I'll get to it on the Mondays. If I don't finish it, it's very hard to finish it, because then my week gets really busy. So I have my system for the creation of it. And you mentioned, a point throughout the week, and then the point of actually doing it. So how do you do it? How do you actually create your content?
Like, I allowed it to morph into how I live my life, which I think is very helpful. When you allow things to kind of fit together and don't resist or do things opposite of how you would normally live. So the way I live my life is very being in the moment. And it doesn't mean ideas haven't come through during the week, but if I don't write them down and I don't capture them, I can't remember. And so they help the idea along, I think, all of the ideas I have during the week. But ideas to me are feeling. So I get a feeling in the body and I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. And I could go deeper on that. And so it has to be the day I write for me still. And I'm hoping to stretch that out, but my practice is in the morning, and then I will start to see what's coming through and what has been relevant in the last week, what has been up for clients kind of starts to pop in. It starts to all come together through my daily mindful living practices.
I love
So
that.
that's how I do it now. And it's on a Monday morning. I trust that something will come through. And if I feel like there's still nothing there, I make myself sit in that chair and butts and chairs and 10 minutes, just give it 10 minutes, Lauren, just write hello, dear one, because that's how I start it, and see what starts coming. Allow your hands just to glide across the keyboard and see what comes. And oftentimes what I sit down to write isn't what ends up being written.
Yeah, similar for me. I mean, even though I try and plan ahead, I'm the same. You know, I've always envied people who can batch create content. You know, because I just think how wonderful. I mean, and I'm sure there is a way, because you just create in the moment, but make that moment, you know, earlier than the moment you need to publish. So there is a, you know, it's possible. But no, I feel the same. It's a collection of what's gone on, you know, throughout the week, or what people have been saying to me, you know, that I feel it's like my answer to what has arisen, you know, that and the same, I can plan something and then something else completely comes through. And so tell us a little bit. I mean, I have a sense, but so your that piece of content that you're talking about is your letter. It's your newsletter to your.
It's my newsletter, and I send it on Monday musings and mindful musings. Get all the.
And then what?
I send it on Monday, and then it becomes in a month. It goes to, if I can even remember, because I'm so lucky to have someone to do it for me now, it goes to Medium.
Yeah.
And then a month later, it's my blog post. And then a month later, it goes to LinkedIn. And that's been my process for a few years now. And it works for me. I like it. Of course, a little bit of editing as we go along. My newsletter, it's not exactly my newsletter when it goes to Medium. A few sentences are changed. There's a little less personal information.
Yeah.
And I invite anyone who's nervous about it or finding it hard to start to really let it fit into your life.
Yeah.
Like, how do you like to do things? And because if you do it in a way that you enjoy living, then a lot of times we can be more courageous.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. I mean, and for me, how you feel about, I mean, this goes for everything, I think. How you feel about doing something is what will determine whether you do it or not, or whether you want to do it, and the outcome. And I think something that I see a lot of people struggling with when they find me is like they think of their content as marketing. It's this thing, you know, the end goal is to get the sale or to make people want to buy from you. And so can you speak to that in terms of your experience with content?
Yeah. I mean, when I found you, that was all I knew. I didn't have a coach prior. It's funny because I was talking to someone else and said, well, how many courses and coaches have you had? And I'm like, well, I'm a wind alchemist. I sign up for different spiritual things. I don't really necessarily sign up for coaching in my business. And so I didn't have a lot of experience with people telling me to do it a different way. And I think that was helpful. I did see what people were doing, and I was trying to emulate it on social media, and it felt icky, and I would always stop. I didn't like that. Just, I'm going to put this out there, and really, I know it's just so you'll buy something from me, and it didn't feel right. So when I came across you, and you had this idea of just sharing my content from the bottom of my heart, from my soul, from my intuition, and let's see what happens. Not really, you know what's going to happen, but to me, I'm like, well, let's see what happens. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
And it just started growing and growing and growing, much like you didn't promise, but you said it could. And so that is how I think I answered your question.
Yeah.
That is how, I started. And I notice, like I said, that pressure we start to put on ourselves. I invite you also, take a deep breath through that pressure and remember that your content isn't necessarily to get you those 6 figures. It is to be a part of the byproduct. The 6 figures are the byproduct of you living.
I love that. I really love that. And yeah, something I would say is because, of course, people, and I've had conversations with people. I did some audience research interviews recently on the topic of content because I wanted to find out what people were struggling with. And, I remember several people were like, is it worth it? Is it worth all the time and effort? That's how it feels. That's the question that kind of stops them in their tracks. And my thing is, I recently did a really thorough review of where my clients come from. And what was surprising was at the top was, well, it wasn't surprising, it was probably obvious, but people, referrals, clients, colleagues, that kind of thing. And content was lower. And I remember reflecting on that, and I thought, but because every time I speak to someone in like a work together call, or a call to discuss joining one of my programs or something like that, I always ask, because it's so important, have you read my content? Like, how much of my content have you read? Sometimes it's obvious because they're just like, from the get-go, they're like, I've read everything you've written. I've been like stalking your website, or I've been on your newsletter. And for me, it's like I can just relax in the chair when I know that they've read my content, because I don't have to sell. I don't have to explain who I am. I don't have to like talk through my approach. Those people are already sold. And so even though people might not say, they'll say, I found you through, Laura sent me. But then what happens after the person is, refers, and then they land on my newsletter or they come onto my blog, that's where, I like to think of content as the way I nurture my people. If you're not going to manipulate people, you have to nurture them. That's and content is the way I do it. So yes, because a lot of people are like, is it going to get me clients? And then that's the wrong question to ask, because that then kills the creativity.
Yeah, it kills your creativity. For me personally, it kills my creativity as soon as I put that expectation or wanting a certain outcome. Of course, I live in the world of, and I coach to letting go of the outcome and living your life as well as you can, and letting the outcome show you. So it will come. And there's going to be an outcome.
Yes. And I'm curious, like, what outcomes have you seen? Like, what benefits has getting consistent with your writing?
Oh my God. I feel like it's really the backbone of everything in the business, because it's shown me my point of view. It's nurtured clients along the way. I have people who reach out and all of a sudden want a subscription. I'm like, well, where did you come from? Well, I've been reading your newsletters, weekly for a year and a half, and it's fun. So it's given me that the backbone part. It's structure. It's part of being a solopreneur for me is having some structure. And of course, now I have more clients, but at the beginning I didn't have clients on a very regular, well, I had them every week, but I didn't have them every day. I didn't have a schedule. And so this gives me this thing to sit down and do and perform, which I find really helpful in this kind of work when you don't have to answer to a boss. And point of view, structure, engaged, and like you said, that nurturing of these little lights out there, these people that are enjoying it.
I love that. I love that.
And it gives me confidence that I can do something, and that and especially when I get feedback. I usually get a little bit of feedback in every single one. it's funny because one that I think I just got out there and it's just like, okay, that's done. And it was, a little less, I don't know, polished, I felt. That's when I get all the most.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is so great. This resonated.
Everyone says that. And then the ones that you think, that was a goodie. I mean, sometimes when I think that was a good one, I get the response. And then sometimes not, and it's like,
Yeah, sometimes, then crickets, right?
yeah, I love
Yeah.
that we don't get to decide. We do not
Yeah,
get
me
to
too.
decide how it lands for people. And yeah, I just think that's so true. And so yes, I mean, I love it. So many benefits. There was a question that was percolating and now it's gone. But I mean, what would you say to people who are struggling with their, who are in the position you were in? Oh, I remember what I was going to say. One thing I was going to say is it's important, I think, to know that you are busy. You do have a
Yeah,
full
I
business,
do have a full
a
schedule now. I
very
do
full
have
practice.
a
Yeah.
very full practice, I have beyond what I wanted as far as the monetary benefit. And of course that's not enough now. So that's
Funny
why.
how that it's funny how that one
Funny
goes.
how that works. I mean, I would have died for this
Yeah.
3 years ago, and now it's here, and I'm like, okay, so
Yeah.
what's next, right? So that's the beauty evolution of running your own business. But I am busy.
And I love that because
want to do the content.
yes.
Once in a while I flirt with the idea of stopping, and I don't feel like it has to be every week as much, but I do try to do every week. I practice that, and
Yeah. I love that. I love that because I think that's really important because I've talked nearly everyone I'm talking to about content and in this kind of conversation is really full, has a full business or has a job and is trying to do the business on the side, because I think so many people like I can't find I don't know how to find the time. And it's like for me, I remember years and years ago talking to a coach, and this was before I was a business coach. I was a life coach and I was building a program, and she said to me, it's 50-50, you have to spend 50% of your time marketing and 50% of the time building the thing that you're marketing. And I remember it was such a shock to me. I was like, 50% of my time marketing. And so it is one of those things that people, I think because of all of the noise and around it, like they it feels like it's too much time and too much effort and all of that stuff. But when you turn it into something that is more of a practice,
a practice, and
yeah,
and something I enjoy. It could be a video for some people. That's not probably never going to be my thing because video scares me, but that just bringing it as a part of your life. And what I would recommend to people who are really having a hard time beginning is taking a deep breath always, and allowing something to come, and saying you don't have to send it out, and giving yourself a time period in the week to do it each week. And really sitting down at that time and putting some effort in. And if you don't like it, you don't have it, and at least you're not any further behind. And if you do find a mentor, a friend, I had Caroline, of course, and then I also had my friend Kathy, and I would send it to her, and she's like 80 years old and she loves me, and she's an editor, so she can edit, and it was perfect. I know everybody has that person in your life that you can send it to and give you the confidence at first. And that's pretty much it.
Yes, I love it. Well, it's been amazing to talk to you. Is there anything in your world that you want to tell my people about, that you're working on, or that I can share with people?
A lot of things are local to here in California. I'm in California. But I do have one-on-one subscriptions available for fall. I have 2 spots open. So
that is a treat because
it is a treat. And you know what, if I hope this is all right with you. You can cut it out if it's not. If anyone in your audience would like a complimentary one-on-one to walk through what might be blocking them
Oh, wow. That's super
in
generous.
their content creation.
I will not be
Love
cutting
to
that
do
out.
that for your audience. Yeah.
Oh, that
That
is
just kind
wonderful.
that
Yeah.
just kind of came through. So yeah, that would
I
be
love that.
fun.
I
That would
love
be
that.
fun.
That would be a lot of fun. I'd love that. And of course, I recommend to everybody that they, if they're at all spiritually inclined or wanting to live more mindfully, that they should absolutely join your list because you send out
Yeah,
really
join my
good,
list.
high quality content on a
Thank
regular
you.
basis, which is why I'm talking to you. So thanks, Laura. It's been lovely to
Thank
chat.
you.